Hey there. So there was this great question from Dr. Daniel Reichman about monitoring camera SD cards for edge storage. So they're talking about they have some access cameras with SD cards in them, and they're trying to get that information about those SD cards through Milestone rather than directly from the camera itself. There's a lot of reasons you might do that. You might be that you don't have access to the camera network from the where the application is running that wants to get that information. You might not want to have to worry about keeping track of all of the different cameras and their credentials and their addresses, and instead you can use XProtect, and the API is available to connect to XProtect and ask it to get that information for you. Bo had started answering this question. Bo is in our MIP SDK team in Denmark, and started answering the question based on what features are available in our SDK. And right now, no, there's no property that you can access if you're using our SDK or our APIs that'll allow you to get information about the edge storage properties. So, whether or not the SD card is present, what the format of that SD card is, how much data is on it, and all that. So that information isn't available through our APIs. However, he does link to some information in our documentation about using the messaging framework in our SDK to send a custom command to the camera. So what this allows you to do is construct a driver command data object with a command it's got two parts. The first part is the method or the verb, the HTTP verb to use when accessing that web URL. And then this is the relative path on the camera, so everything after that first slash, after the host name that you're connecting to. And then you can optionally also include a query string, or if you're posting data to the camera, you can provide the body of that message using the parameter property. Now, what's neat about this is that you can actually do this through PowerShell using Milestone PS tools, which is something that Dr. Daniel Rickman had requested information about. So I had a look at this, and it is actually not as hard as I thought it might be. So there's a built-in command in Milestone PS Tools called send MIP message. And so there's information about this command in the documentation. This command is in the module. However, it can be a little confusing on what information you need to provide in order to do something like this. And so I wrote this function called send VMS driver command. This is not in Milestone PS Tools, at least not today. It's just being provided as a example of how you could send custom commands to cameras. So I want to demonstrate how you could do this. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into a PowerShell session, and I'm going to go ahead and run this command. All this is doing is invoke expression is the IEX there. And then IWR is invoke web request. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling down the raw send VMS driver command text. So if I go over here and click on this little raw button, I'm effectively copying and pasting this content into my PowerShell session, but a little bit of a shortcut. All right, so now I have that loaded, and let me go ahead and get a camera. So go ahead and grab this camera here. Okay, so I have this office camera, and now I want to get information about the edge storage. I don't actually have an SD card installed right now, but that doesn't matter. We can get the information, and the camera will tell us. So we can do camera and then send VMS driver command. So if we take a look at this command, the path, this is coming from the Axis VAPX API documentation. So feel free to look that up online if you have Axis cameras. If you have another camera brand, most of the camera manufacturers have documentation for their APIs. So you could send commands or requests for information directly to other cameras as well. So in this case, we're just asking to list all of the disks available for edge storage on the camera. And when I run that, I get back an XML document So this is coming through Milestone, through our recording server, but we're not talking directly to the camera. But this is the data that the camera provided to the recording server based on our request, and so it just forwarded that back to us. And so if you wanted to, some cameras are going to give you back XML. Most of them probably will. Some of them will give you back JSON. If you wanted to work with an XML document a little bit easier in PowerShell, you could use the type accelerator for XML. So if I say doc equals XML, and I'll just copy and paste this here. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and get that block of XML text, and then I'm going to coerce that into an XML document. And when I do that, I can look at that variable. It says doc has a root property. So doc.root. Okay, it has a disks property. That's cool. Disks. All right, and then this is telling me that there are 2 disks, and then there's this disk property. So it looks like there's 2 disks that I can access there. And there we go. So we have our SD card, and it's telling us status is disconnected because I don't have an SD card in that camera. And then we have a network share disk, and then we get details about that. So not only can you retrieve information, but you could also say I had an SD card inserted. Then if I send the right HTTP request, then I could go ahead and format that SD card or enable encryption on that card. And you could work with other properties on the camera as well. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope you have a great holiday weekend if you're in the US. Cheers.